crazy, we'll have to do some terrible things.
For the greater good.
You'll no longer be beloved celebrities.
But with hurt in the fewest of ways.
You will be wrathful gods. Show me a little wrath.
Every single season, it feels like this is going to be when Homelander finally can't get away with it. And there was a few moments this season where I could see it in his eyes that he's like, oh, this is it. It's not going to happen. And then it just kind of all works out in mysterious ways, whether good or bad. Right. Do you come into this every season and feel like there's no way he's going to pull it out this year?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like he ever really wins. I feel like it's like, I think maybe at the end of season 3. No, definitely at the end of season 3 is a win because he leaves with his kid, and that's where season 4 picks up. But I honestly, the scripts didn't come out all at once this season, so I have no idea where they're going to go. I follow the bouncing ball like everyone else, and Eric gives us an idea of where things are going to go. But I feel like he never really wins because he's always just this. Because of the subjective nature I have with the character and relationship to it, I see it from the inside, where I just see this tragic, maniacal, egotistical narcissist who's the weakest character on the show that wins, but never really does.
And the scenes with the hairs, not to spoil anything, but that throughout all the episodes with the hairs, it's just like this moment of weakness that you're kind of seeing in the character. Like almost there's like this kryptonite to him. Do you have a feeling like that there is an Achilles heel or something else that's in there that's going to come back to haunt him in the future?
His kryptonite is okay. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Do you see that somehow leading in the future to some sort of an Achilles heel for Homelander?
I don't. I think what it leads to is the idea of mortality and legacy in the season, and I think that is that's the takeaway from the hairs. I got to be careful. I'm going to crack up. But no, it is. It's a very silly moment with a very deep meaning for the character.
And Chase, for you, you've got some intense moments this season as well. And I think that there's like that, there's a connection, and, the whole thing with the octopus last season and then coming into this season. Was that fun for you to kind of inject a little bit of levity, but it's also some very serious moments for this character this season?
Yeah, I was happy to go in that direction, that they took the character in that direction, that he's got some, intensity, and he's kind of leaning into, oh, okay, I can use violence as this like tool and cudgel to kind of literally beat people up, but also kind of maybe assert some power and just sort of have an outlet for that emotion. Was fun to see that dimension of the deep, or at least it was fun to play it. So I haven't seen all the episodes, but yeah, it was. Got to do some cool stuff by the end of the season. It was great.
Violence isn't brave. Violence is power.
That's a spirit, champ.
Who wants a creamy, delicious milkshake?
You got to tell all three of you right off the bat, best season so far. It is so good.
Thank you.
And easily the three of you have my favorite performances this season in various different ways.
You have to say that. I bet you said that. You
Yeah, well, you'll never know until you watch it later. But I'll say
we're gonna check.
Erin, I'll start with you. You get to have probably the best duality this season with everything you got to do. Was it fun? Everything that happens in the second half of the season, getting to kind of play different versions of this?
Yeah. It was less fun and more like soul satisfying for me to do it, because it is obviously like it's happening before our eyes, but it's also very metaphorical. And there was this weird thing transpiring where I just actively every day kept thinking to myself, look, I don't know how I ended up in this position, but I feel so lucky because we all have those moments, and they're really significant, I think, in our lives. And one of the most paralyzing emotions we can feel is shame. And I feel like as soon as you address something like that with a character like that, you're dialing the noise down on shame a little bit just by contributing to the conversation and saying, hey, here's a character who is literally named Starlight. She's a prototype of good, and she is fucking up in such a severe way. And she is having a crisis of identity in such a severe way that just inherently makes one feel less alone in comparison to what they're going through, I think. And that therefore sort of contributes to a little bit, I hope, I don't know. It made me feel empowered just playing the role, which says a lot because that is purely an attribute to the writers, not myself. To be able to speak more about moments of crisis like that and persevering and holding on to your identity as much as you can. So I hope that it catalyzes that in someone else, less feelings of shame and solitude and more of the fact that everybody's got problems. Everybody's got issues, especially her, the pinnacle of good.
Karen, you do such an amazing job and you don't utter a word. How hard is it to play this character and just convey as much as you do silently?
You know, it's challenging for sure because it's a skill that I've never learned before taking on this role. But I really think that's what makes the character special and stand out. I really enjoyed like going into the rehearsals and going over the script with my sign language coach Amanda, and we've built this relationship where we're very close, I think, and we can talk about our own life experiences, and rehearsal doesn't really feel like rehearsal. And I've definitely and
that's great.
It's awesome, and I've definitely been able to like pull parts of Kimiko's character from Amanda's experiences in a way. Not directly, but you know, it adds a little bit more color to the character. And so I've loved the process of it. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm out of time, but Claudia, I did want to say your character, you're just so awesome. It's impossible to hate you, but I hated you this season in the best way possible. So you're awesome. I'm sorry I don't have time for a question, but thank you so much all. It's a great season. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I can't believe this is fucking happening to me again.
I love this season so much. It is so fantastic. And Susan, I wanted to start with you. This character is so awesome. This is like you would not expect there to be somebody that could go toe to toe with Homelander if they are not like Superman. But this character is just the brains will always kind of trump anything else. What was it like playing this character and joining this world?
The process of joining was like jumping on a moving train. So thank you so much for your kind words. A lot of work went into it from the whole team. And then staying in the world was like walking on a tightrope, always adjusting, staying in the moment. Tony's such an incredible animal to watch for every take that he does to be able to respond to it. And the writer's room consistently brought us to surprising moments. They always were, I think, what was the word you used, Colby? More grotesque. The moments were increasingly grotesque, which is, you know, part of the charm of the show. So it was, I'd say jumping on a train and walking on a tightrope, sometimes feeling like going back and forth between the two.
Awesome. And Colby, you're a fan favorite since the very first season, and it's very cool to see how much this character has gotten more screen time and has grown. A lot happens to Ashley this season. What was it like? Like, were you prepared when you read the scripts for what you were going to go through?
No, I didn't know what they when they wrote that. I was like, what? I was really excited. I mean, there's for them to start to play with some of Ashley's like behind the whatever happens like outside of her office is really exciting for me, and it's been kind of a dream since they decided to explore Ashley more. Yeah, I was not prepared though for like how far they were gonna go, and I had so much fun playing with that part of her for sure.
Awesome. And Valorie, this character is there's so much basis, sadly, in reality that there are some people that are not too far removed from this character that we see. Did you draw inspiration from anything real, or was this just something that you decided I'm going to go crazy with it?
Honestly, I didn't try to base her as a person too much in the unnamed people that, she might be quoting from time to time in dialogue. But if anything, I sort of dug more into her background to inform who she was and how she behaved. Like ultimately it's like she's an ex-pageant girl, like she can be on like that, but also in order to ground her, I mean, Kripke always kind of talks about like the two levels to the soups. There's like the person, and then there's the persona, which for her is very, very satirical, like very based in real people. So like I had to kind of really lean into the person, and she has that ability to perform, but she also has this incredible, honestly, like emotional intelligence in terms of knowing what people want and what people need. So she can turn on in a minute, and she can like turn on a dime, and she can give you exactly what you want. And I think that comes from an unexpected place. So yeah, kind of leaning into those qualities more so than the research, because also the research is grotesque.
Yeah. And Susan, one last question for you. This season ends in a particular way. Did you know where this was going to be going next, or is that still a surprise for you too?
I beg them to tell me where we're going. Like, help me, please, please. I need to know. I can plan. I can be, like a prepared actor. But they kept me on my toes. I think the same for you guys. They're giving us the chapters kind of step by step. So I was, it's my suspicions, but I was pretty delighted, surprised to find out where we ended up.
I look back at my life, and all I see are the messes I made. And I ain't got time to fix it.
I'm going to be totally honest with you, because you could totally Google it later. I was not a huge fan of season one. I liked it, but
Fair
I didn't
enough.
love it. So got to go that each season, my rating has gone up and up. And this has got to be the best one of the four so far. It's just the most
fantastic.
Balanced. It's hilarious. It's violent. It's got all the elements that made the comic great. Some amazing performances, things I did not see coming. And I know that there's obviously season 5, but I got to ask, is there an end game? Do you know when and where the story ends, or is this something that could keep going on?
I don't want to speak to when, speaking as the guy who said over and over that Supernatural should only go 5 years and that it went 15. So really no one's been more wrong in history on that subject than me. But in terms of what it is, I mean, look, the big sort of drama of the show is Butcher versus Homelander. So that needs to come to a head. And so that will have something to do. That'll be a big part of the end game. But in terms of when that end game comes, no comment.
And, in mentioning Supernatural, those seasons had 20, 22, 24 episodes. And so you've got that same thing that a lot of procedurals and like shows like the X-Files, where you had Monster of the Week and mythology that you had to balance. With this show, shorter episode count, it's a lot more focused. How do you figure out how to balance these subplots? Because there's so many characters, and they all really do get their due this season.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. A lot of conversation with very smart writers, and one thing we do really work on is even though there's season-wide arcs, we want every episode to be its own enjoyable piece of a larger puzzle. And I get really annoyed by shows that are like, hang in there because episode 5 it really starts to cook, or it's an 8-episode movie. I'm like, fuck you, go make a movie. We're in the TV business. And it's probably a lot of my network experience talking of like I lived in a world where I lived and died on ratings, and my episode had to be really good because I needed ratings good enough
to justify the studio making more. So for me, it's about like, we always talk about like, what's the specific story of that episode? And then how does it step ladder up into the story of a whole season?
And with the network television thing in mind, I used to watch Lost religiously, and when that show came on each week, at the beginning they'd have the previously on Lost recap, and my wife would get so annoyed and say, "Nothing ever happens. Previously on Lost, nothing ever happens." But so much is happening in each of these episodes, and you've got to balance all these characters. Nobody's really safe. Somebody could live or die each season. Do you ever have any expectation going into the season of, we're definitely going to kill this person off, or we're definitely going to introduce this character, or does that develop as you're working on it?
I mean, we definitely come into the season with some ideas and like just a cocktail napkin sketch or a really rough sketch of where we think it's going to go. And we also spend the first, I think it's like 2 months of the writer's room just talking about the big picture storylines before we even get into the episodes. So for example, when we were breaking season 4, like, did I know that, I mean, spoilers, so don't put this part until after it airs, but like, did I know was going to die on day 1 in season 4? Like, no, I did not know that. But did I know by month 1? Yeah, I had a pretty good idea by month 1 that that's where that character needed to go. So you really try to set like a really high satellite level view of what you think the story is going to be. Then you start getting into the nitty gritty of the episodes and the scenes and the character arcs and everything. But you already have a blueprint that changes all the time. You realize that certain things aren't going to work once you get more detailed, but you have a place to start.
And you've had some great additions. You had Jensen coming in last season. You have Jeffrey Dean Morgan this season. Is there anybody on the bucket list to add for future seasons? Any characters in mind that you're thinking, ooh, I want this person?
I mean, I feel like I wouldn't be winning my game of Supernatural Pokemon without Jared Padalecki coming in at least once. Outside of that, it just sort of depends on where the story goes and who will return Seth Rogen's calls, as it is sort of every season.
And you had mentioned in recently some comments about the Mexico spinoff and where that might be headed. And we know about Gen V and any future spinoffs that could be out there. Do you think that these will be holistically about new characters, or do you think there's a chance that one of the main members of this show could spin off into their own series?
You never know. The core of those shows needs to be original characters. I'm very conscious of the fact that we are a anti-corporate punk rock show. And so it stings extra hard if we sell out and suck. So like, I worry about that as much as I worry about anything. And so any new show we have, the rule has to be, would you watch that show if there was no such thing as The Boys? Is it interesting enough to live on its own as its own world? And for it to do that, it needs to have its own characters and its own reason for being.
And last question, real quick. The hairs recurring throughout this season with Homelander. I asked Antony about it. Would you say that mortality is Homelander's kryptonite, or is there something else that might be coming in the future?
I would widen that out slightly to say humanity is his kryptonite. He hates and is disgusted by all parts of him that are human. And he hates the weakness, but that makes it his weakness.